The massive silver ship descended from the clouds over Geneva, Switzerland on a clear June morning in 2087. People stopped and stared, some pointing while others grabbed their phones to record what would become the most important moment in human history. Traffic halted. A hush fell over the city as the alien vessel, smooth and gleaming like liquid metal, hovered above Lake Geneva before settling gently onto the designated landing area. Ambassador Lauren Maxwell straightened her jacket and took a deep breath. At 43, she had spent her career in diplomatic service, but nothing had prepared her for this. Beside her stood General Alan Blackwood, his weathered face betraying no emotion despite the historical weight of the moment. "Ready?" she asked. He gave a curt nod. As ready as anyone can be to meet aliens. A panel on the ship's side dissolved rather than opened, revealing 3 figures who stepped onto Earth's soil. The tallest aliens had bluish skin that shimmered slightly in the sunlight. Their elongated heads housed 4 eyes, 2 large primary ones and 2 smaller ones above them. These were the Zoraxians. Beside them stood stockier beings with rough, almost bark-like skin and prominent brow ridges, the Dravek. "Welcome to Earth," Ambassador Maxwell said, stepping forward with her hand extended in greeting. The lead Zoraxian, Ambassador Zelthar, blinked his 4 eyes in sequence. He looked at her hand with what seemed like mild disgust before making a flowing gesture with his 6-fingered hand. "Greetings, humans of Earth. The Galactic Confederation acknowledges your species' recent development of basic, faster-than-light communication technology. This qualifies you for initial contact protocols." His voice came through a translator device on his chest, sounding slightly mechanical, but clear. What surprised Lauren most was his tone. It carried the same patience one might use when speaking to a very young child. General Blackwood stiffened beside her. He had spent 30 years in military service and recognized condescension in any language. The meeting moved to the United Nations headquarters, hastily prepared for this moment since the aliens had announced their arrival 1 week prior. World. Leaders gathered in a special session, many looking pale and nervous. Dr. Olivia Winters sat in the scientific advisory section, her fingers flying across her tablet as she recorded observations about the aliens' physiology. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, a field that had been largely theoretical until today, she noticed details others missed. The way the Zoraxians moved suggested different joint structures. The Dravek seemed to process oxygen differently, based on their breathing patterns. "Your species has progressed quickly in some ways," Zelthar continued his address to the assembly. "However, you remain quite primitive by Confederation standards. Your technology is roughly equivalent to our own about 8,000 years ago," murmurs ran through the human delegates. 8,000 years sounded impossible. Nevertheless, the alien continued, "The Confederation offers Earth protected status. We will share certain basic technologies to improve your quality of life. In return, we ask for limited resource sharing and observation rights." Ambassador Maxwell leaned forward. "Protected status sounds generous, but what exactly does that mean? Is this full membership in your Confederation?" A sound emerged from the Dravek representative that the translator conveyed as laughter. "Full membership? No, human. Protected status means we recognize your sentience and right to exist without interference. Think of it as a wildlife preserve, on a planetary scale." General Blackwood's jaw tightened. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "We simply lack the biological and technological advancement for full membership," Ambassador Maxwell said carefully. "What would those requirements be?" Zelthar made a fluid gesture that seemed dismissive. "Your species is too young. You lack psychic capabilities. Your lifespans rarely exceed a century. Your bodies break easily and heal slowly. These are not judgments, merely facts." "Facts that amuse you," Blackwood noted, speaking for the first time. Zelthar turned all 4 eyes toward the general. "We find your species interesting. Your emotional volatility especially. You experience feelings with an intensity most civilized species outgrew millennia ago." Dr. Winters raised her hand and was acknowledged. "Would the Confederation be willing to share biological samples?" for scientific understanding between our peoples. The Zoraxian made a gesture of agreement. Of course, we have nothing to hide from a protected species. In the weeks that followed, Earth governments formed the United Earth Council to deal with the aliens. Captain Samuel Harris was appointed to lead the diplomatic security team, a position that allowed him to observe the aliens closely, while others focused on the technology the aliens shared, mostly medical and agricultural improvements. Harris studied their ships, weapons, and tactics. "They think we're harmless," he told Dr. Winters one evening as she worked late in her new laboratory. "That could be useful." Olivia looked up from her microscope. "These cellular structures are fascinating. Their nervous systems process information differently than ours. I think they may actually be less adaptable on a biological level." "What do you mean?" Harris asked, leaning against her lab table. "Evolution is about adaptation," she explained. "The Zoraxians and Dravek evolved with certain advantages: better senses, natural armor, longer lives. But that specialization might have come at a cost." Harris watched her work, his mind turning over possibilities. "They don't expect much. From us, that's clear." 3 months after first contact, the Confederation established an embassy in Geneva. Trade agreements were signed, mostly favoring the aliens. Earth received medical technology that cured several major diseases and agricultural methods that increased food production by 30%. In exchange, the aliens received mining rights to uninhabited parts of the solar system and permission to study humans. Ambassador Maxwell became increasingly frustrated with the unequal relationship. At every turn, human concerns were dismissed as primitive thinking. In a private meeting with Zelthar, she pressed for more equitable treatment. "My dear Ambassador," the Zoraxian said, "you must understand your place in the galactic order. We've seen many species at your stage of development. Some advance further, some don't. We're simply being practical." After she left, Zelthar turned to his aide. "They're so fragile yet so confident. It's almost endearing how they think they could ever be our equals." His aide made a gesture of amusement. "The cosmic joke of the galaxy." "Yes," Zelthar agreed, "but a rather entertaining one." Neither noticed the small monitoring device Captain Harris had placed in their chamber, nor realized that humans were listening, learning, and planning. The joke, as Earth would eventually prove, was just beginning. 5 years passed since the aliens first landed on Earth. The gleaming spires of the Confederation embassy now dominated the Geneva skyline, a constant reminder of humanity's new place in the universe. What had once seemed miraculous now felt routine. Alien tourists wandered Earth's cities, pointing and sometimes laughing at human customs. Dr. Olivia Winters stared at the test results on her screen, then checked them again. For 3 years, she had been quietly studying the biological samples provided by the Confederation species. What she discovered kept her awake at night. "Are you sure about this?" asked Captain Samuel Harris, now promoted to commander. His office, in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, was deliberately plain, with few decorations except for a world map and several seemingly ordinary tablets that contained classified information. "Completely," Olivia said. "Human neural plasticity exceeds every Confederation species by a significant margin. They evolved specific advantages, but we evolved adaptability." Harris nodded slowly. "That matches what we've observed with their technology. They don't innovate the way we do." What the Confederation didn't know was that humans had been quietly reverse engineering the outdated technology they had been given. The aliens believed humans were still struggling to understand basic principles, but Earth scientists had already improved upon several designs. Ambassador Lauren Maxwell entered Harris's office looking tired. At 48, the stress of constantly fighting for Earth's dignity in Confederation meetings had aged her. "They denied our request for full membership again," she said, dropping into a chair. "Zelthar actually patted me on the hand like a child." "They still think we're pets," Harris said. "Well, this pet has teeth," Olivia replied, turning her tablet to show Maxwell the results. "We should share this with the Council." The United Earth Council met in a secure underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Alan Blackwood, now serving as Earth Defense Commissioner, presented the findings. Dr. Winters has confirmed what we suspected. The Confederation species evolved with advantages that made them successful early, but it limited their ability to adapt. Humans evolved differently. Council President Maria Diaz looked thoughtful. What does this mean for our strategy? It means, Harris said, stepping forward, that we should continue letting them think we're harmless while we prepare. The Horizon is nearly ready. The Horizon was Earth's first true deep space vessel, built using modified Confederation technology. Officially, it was a training ship, constructed under alien supervision. Unofficially, humans had made significant improvements the aliens knew nothing about. 2 months later, Commander William Crawford stood on the bridge of the Horizon as it prepared for its maiden voyage. At 39, Crawford had been selected. For his quick thinking and calm under pressure, his crew of 60 represented Earth's finest. Confederation advisors are aboard. His first officer, Lieutenant Kelly Parker, reported. They're settling into their quarters. Crawford nodded. Make sure they're comfortable, and make sure their monitoring devices only see what we want them to see. The Horizon launched from the lunar shipyard with little fanfare. 2 Zoraxian officers, Krenzex and Talovir, served as advisors, though their real purpose was to ensure humans didn't advance too quickly. They seemed bored as Crawford took the ship through basic maneuvers. Very good, Commander, Krenzex said with the patient tone of an adult praising a child's drawing. You handle the controls adequately. Crawford just smiled. Thank you for your guidance. 3 weeks into what was supposed to be a simple tour of the solar system, the Horizon detected an unusual signal near Neptune. Unidentified vessels approaching, Lieutenant Parker announced. 3 ships moving fast. Krenzex moved to the sensor display. Scav raiders, he said, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in what Crawford had learned was a sign of anxiety. We must retreat immediately. The Scav were vicious pirates who operated outside Confederation protection. Even the warlike Dravek feared them. We're too far from Earth, Crawford said calmly. They'd catch us before we could escape. This vessel has no weapons, Talovir said, his voice rising. We are doomed. Crawford exchanged a glance with Parker. No Confederation weapons, perhaps. Lieutenant, activate defense systems. Hidden. Panels opened on the Horizon's hull, revealing weapon ports. The Zoraxian advisors stared in shock. This is impossible, Krenzex whispered. You should return to your quarters, Crawford suggested. We'll handle this. As the Scav ships approached, Crawford implemented a strategy no Confederation captain would have considered. Instead of running or fighting directly, he maneuvered the Horizon into Neptune's upper atmosphere, using the planet's gravity and magnetic field to mask their position while launching precision strikes at the pursuers. The tactic worked brilliantly. 2 Scav ships were disabled and the 3rd retreated. When the Horizon emerged from Neptune's clouds, the Zoraxian advisors could hardly believe what they had witnessed. Your tactics were unorthodox, Krenzex said later, studying Crawford with all 4 eyes. No Confederation commander would have thought to use a gas giant's atmosphere that way. Humans have always had to think creatively to survive, Crawford replied simply. When they returned to Earth, Krenzex filed a report to Confederation intelligence. They learn differently than we do. They don't simply acquire information. They transform it. It's concerning. His warning was dismissed by Confederation officials. All primitive species show some adaptability, the High Commander responded. Without psychic abilities, they will never truly advance. Meanwhile, Dr. Winters made another breakthrough in her research. She called an emergency meeting with Ambassador Maxwell and Commissioner Blackwood. I've discovered why the Confederation species developed psychic abilities and we didn't, she explained, showing them brain scans. Their neural pathways evolved for direct mind-to-mind communication, but it came at a cost. Their thinking became standardized. They literally can't conceive of certain types of innovation. Is that why their technology has barely changed in thousands of years? Maxwell asked. Exactly. They reached a peak and plateaued. Humans never stop adapting. Commissioner Blackwood studied the data. How long before they realize what we're doing? They can't conceive that we could advance this quickly, Winter said. Their experience with other species tells them it should take centuries, not years. Across Earth, hidden facilities were developing new technologies based on Confederation principles but with human innovation. The aliens believed humans were still struggling with basic concepts, while Earth was preparing for the day when the joke would no longer be funny. In orbit, the Horizon docked at the lunar shipyard, where it would receive upgrades based on what they had learned. Commander Crawford watched from the observation deck as Earth rose over the lunar horizon. "They still think we're children," he said to Lieutenant Parker. She smiled. "Then they've never met human children. We're always full of surprises." A decade after first contact, Earth had changed in ways both visible and invisible. Gleaming transportation tubes connected major cities. Disease was becoming a distant memory. Food production had doubled. On the surface, humanity seemed grateful for Confederation assistance. Beneath this peaceful image, tensions were growing. Ambassador Lauren Maxwell, now with streaks of gray in her dark hair, sat in her office reviewing reports from Saturn's moons. Her face grew tighter with each page. "They're strip mining Titan," she said to Commissioner Alan Blackwood, who stood by the window. At 64, he remained as imposing as ever, now with the added authority of 10 years leading Earth's defense preparations. "The Drivek Corporation is taking resources they have no right to under our treaty." "And the Confederation response?" Blackwood asked, though he already knew the answer. "They claim our understanding of the treaty is limited by our primitive, legal concepts." Lauren's voice was bitter. "The Zoraxian High Council said they would explain it to us slowly at the next meeting." "Keep playing their game," Blackwood said quietly. "We need more time." Lauren looked up sharply. "How much more time?" "They treat us like children, Alan. Worse than children. Like pets." "Not for much longer," he promised. "Dr. Winters and Patrick Reed have completed the SHIELD project." Patrick Reed was Earth's most brilliant engineer. A quiet man who had spent the past 6 years developing technology that even the Confederation would find surprising. His partnership with Dr. Winters had produced remarkable results. On Mars, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The joint human Dravik mining facility had been a source of constant friction. Jack Peterson, the human administrator, tried to maintain peace despite increasingly harsh treatment from the Dravik supervisors. "Your workers are too slow," barked Cragg, the Dravik commander. His bark-like skin flushed dark with anger. "The quota must be met." "They're working 16-hour shifts already," Jack protested. "They need rest or they'll make mistakes." Cragg slammed his fist on the table. "Excuses. This is why humans will never advance. You are weak." That evening, when the human workers protested their conditions, Cragg made a decision. He called his security team and ordered them to make an example of the protest leaders. "Nothing fatal," he instructed, "just painful enough to teach them obedience." But the Dravik guards, unused to human fragility, went too far. 27 colonists died in what would later be called the Mars Massacre. News reached Earth 3 days later. Ambassador Maxwell demanded justice at an emergency Confederation Council meeting. "These were murdered civilians," she said, her voice shaking. "Workers who simply asked for basic safety measures." The Zoraxian delegate, Pel Nav, looked bored. "Regrettable, certainly. The Dravek Corporation has offered payment for the lost labor resources." "They were people, not resources," Maxwell snapped. "Please control your emotional outburst," Pel Nav replied. "We understand humans attach sentimental value to individual lives. The corporation offers 200,000 credits per human lost, a generous sum considering their limited productivity." Lauren Maxwell wanted to scream, but years of diplomatic training held her in check. "I will consult with Earth government," she said stiffly. When she returned to Earth, the United Earth Council held an emergency session. Officials expected outrage, demands for immediate action. Instead, Ambassador Maxwell was eerily calm. "We accept their terms," she announced, surprising everyone. "Ambassador?" Council President Diaz questioned. We accept their payment and consider the matter closed, Maxwell repeated. As far as the Confederation is concerned, we've moved on. The real meeting happened afterward, in a secure bunker 200 feet below the official council chambers. There Maxwell met with Blackwood, Dr. Winters, Engineer Reed, and the top military officials from Earth's hidden defense program. It's time, Maxwell said simply. Blackwood nodded. Operation Revelation is ready. We've been preparing for 10 years. Dr. Winters displayed a holographic model of the shield system she and Reed had developed. This technology exploits a fundamental weakness in Confederation weapon systems. Their energy patterns are highly standardized. They haven't innovated in centuries. Our shields specifically counter those patterns. Will it work? Asked General Frank Martinez, commander of Earth's hidden fleet. It already has, Reed replied. We've tested it against every weapon design we've been able to study or replicate. Martinez looked to Blackwood. Your call, Commissioner. Blackwood studied the faces around him. For a decade, they had tolerated condescension, discrimination, and now murder. They had smiled and bowed while secretly preparing. The Confederation thought humans had been domesticated. They were wrong. 6 months, he decided. We continue the act for 6 more months while we deploy the systems. Then we show them who we really are. The Confederation noticed nothing unusual in the months that followed. Earth registered formal protests about the Mars incident but accepted the settlement. Trade continued. Human representatives remained polite, even subservient in Confederation meetings. Ambassador Zelthar, now elevated to the Zoraxian High Council, remarked to his colleagues, the humans have finally accepted their place. They're learning to be good protectorates. Meanwhile, ships disguised as ordinary cargo vessels moved into position throughout the solar system. Dr. Winters and Patrick Reed worked day and night, perfecting their technologies. Training intensified for the military personnel who would execute Operation Revelation. On Mars, the Dravik expanded their operations, treating the remaining human workers with even less regard than before. Commander Cragg was promoted for his efficient handling of the labor dispute. 5 months after the Mars massacre, Ambassador Maxwell attended a Confederation gala on the Moon. She smiled politely at jokes about human biology and pretended not to notice when alien delegates spoke about Earth as if it were a quaint tourist destination rather than humanity's home. Pelnav approached her, drink in hand. Ambassador, I must compliment you on how well humans have adjusted to galactic realities. Many species take centuries to accept their proper place. Lauren smiled. We're adaptable. Indeed, a charming quality in a lesser species. 1 month later, Commissioner Blackwood addressed the United Earth Defense Council for the final time before Operation Revelation began. For 10 years, they've studied us while believing we couldn't truly understand them. They've underestimated us at every turn. They think we've been domesticated. He paused, looking at each person in the room. It's time to show them that we were never their pets. We were studying them. General Martinez stood. The fleet is ready, sir. Dr. Winters nodded. Shield systems are deployed. Engineer Reed added. Production facilities are prepared for full mobilization. Ambassador Maxwell was the last to speak. I have one final meeting with the Confederation Council tomorrow. After that, there's no going back. Blackwood looked at Earth's hidden defenders, the men and women who had prepared in secret for this moment. Then let's introduce the galaxy to the real humanity. The day Operation Revelation began started like any other. Confederation ships moved through the Sol system, their crews paying little attention to the human cargo vessels that had become common sights over the past decade. On Mars, Commander Craig inspected the mining operation, barking orders at human workers who kept their eyes lowered. In the Confederation Embassy in Geneva, diplomats prepared for another day of explaining complex concepts to their simple human hosts. At exactly 0600 Greenwich Mean Time, everything changed. Admiral Alan Blackwood, recently promoted in a ceremony the Confederation hadn't bothered to attend, stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Freedom, hidden in a crater on the far side of the Moon. All ships report ready, Admiral, said his communications officer. Blackwood took a deep breath. Begin Operation Revelation. Across the solar system, 30 Earth vessels simultaneously shed their cargo ship disguises, revealing sleek warships. Before the Confederation could react, the human vessels activated their shield systems and targeted every military installation the aliens had established in Sol space. On the Confederation base orbiting Jupiter, Zoraxian Commander Veldor was enjoying his morning meal when alarms blared. He rushed to the command center. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Human vessels approaching," his officer reported, sounding confused. "They're deploying some kind of energy field." "Humans? Activate defense systems. The Confederation weapons powered up, targeting the approaching Earth ships." Energy beams lanced out and dissipated harmlessly against the human shields. Veldor stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. The human vessel transmitted a message. "Attention, Confederation. Wine. Forces. This installation is now under Earth control. Power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. No harm will come to cooperative personnel." Similar scenes played out at every Confederation military installation in the system. The operation had been planned with precision, targeting only military assets and ensuring minimal casualties on both sides. On Mars, Commander Cragg was enjoying watching human workers struggle with heavy equipment. When Earth forces beamed directly into his facility, using transportation technology the Confederation thought humans were decades from developing. Captain Samuel Harris, now a battle-hardened veteran, led the Mars Liberation Team. "Commander Cragg, your facility is now under Earth control. Your security forces have already been contained." Cragg reached for his weapon, but Harris was faster. A stun beam left the Dravik commander conscious but immobilized. "How?" Cragg growled. "You are primitives. You cannot have this technology." Harris smiled coldly. "We let you think that. It seemed safer that way." In Geneva, Ambassador Lauren Maxwell entered the Confederation Council chamber for her scheduled meeting. The alien delegates were in chaos, receiving reports of the simultaneous takeover occurring throughout the system. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded High Counselor Zelthar, all four eyes fixed on Maxwell. "Your species commits an act of war?" Maxwell stood tall. "Not war. Self-determination. For 10 years, your Confederation has treated humans as amusing pets. You dismissed our concerns, exploited our resources, and when your people murdered our citizens, you offered credits, as if buying damaged property. You cannot hope to stand against the Confederation," Zelthar sputtered. "We have thousands of worlds, millions of ships. Yet in just 6 hours, we've neutralized every military asset you placed in our system," Maxwell replied, "without destroying a single ship or taking a single life." On a view screen behind her, images appeared showing Confederation bases now under human control. The alien delegates fell silent, stunned by the precision and completeness of the human operation. Dr. Olivia Winters entered the chamber, followed by Engineer Patrick Reed. They had aged over the 15 years since first contact, but their eyes showed the satisfaction of scientists whose work had finally been revealed. "Let me explain what you've witnessed today," Dr. Winters said, activating a holographic display. "Humans lack the psychic abilities that most Confederation species possess. You saw this as a fundamental weakness. What you failed to understand is that this absence forced our brains to develop differently." The display showed comparative neural scans of human and alien brains. "Your psychic abilities created evolutionary shortcuts," she continued. "Direct mind-to-mind communication meant your species stopped developing certain cognitive functions. You became highly specialized, but that specialization became a limitation." Reed stepped forward. "Your technology has remained essentially unchanged for millennia. You improve efficiency, but you don't innovate. We studied everything you shared with us, found the patterns and weaknesses, then developed countermeasures you couldn't conceive of because your thinking had become too standardized." Zelthar seemed to age before their eyes. "What do you want?" Maxwell placed a data tablet on the council table. "These are our terms. Earth and all human colonies will be recognized as full Confederation members with equal rights. The Dravek responsible for the Mars massacre will face justice. Exploitation of resources in our system will cease immediately. And if we refuse? Asked a Dravek counselor. Admiral Blackwood's image appeared on the view screen. Then we'll be forced to demonstrate that today's operation was merely a fraction of our capability. The Zoraxian High Commander, watching from their homeworld, dismissed the human threat and ordered a punitive fleet to Earth. 3 days later, 40 Confederation warships arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Blackwood commanded the Human Defense from the Freedom. All ships deploy shields, target weapon systems only. Remember, we want to disable, not destroy. The Confederation fleet opened fire, expecting to overwhelm the primitive humans with superior numbers. Instead, their weapons had almost no effect on the specialized human shields. The Earth vessels responded with precision strikes that disabled the alien ship's propulsion and weapons without causing catastrophic damage. Within 2 hours, half the Confederation fleet hung powerless in space, their crews alive but unable to continue fighting. The remaining ships retreated in disarray. On the Zoraxian homeworld, the High Command watched in stunned silence. Zelthar, now Zoraxian Prime Minister, finally understood the magnitude of their miscalculation. We thought them simple because they lacked psychic ability, he said quietly. We never considered that their minds evolved differently because they had to overcome limitations we never faced. In Earth's secure bunker, the United Earth Council received the news of their victory with solemn satisfaction. What happens next? Asked Council President Diaz. Ambassador Maxwell looked at the faces around her. Blackwood, Winters, Reed, Harris, the people who had led humanity through 15 years of quiet preparation for this moment. Now, she said, we negotiate as equals. 6 months after Operation Revelation, the massive Confederation diplomatic vessel descended toward Earth. This time, it was not met with wonder but with a careful escort of human ships. The landing area was no longer a hastily prepared field, but a proper spaceport built with a blend of human innovation and adapted alien technology. Ambassador Lauren Maxwell watched the ship land. At 59, she had spent nearly 16 years dealing with the Confederation, most of those years being talked down to and dismissed. Today would be different. The Galactic Confederation's Supreme Council, 12 representatives from the founding species, emerged from their ship. Their body language, once so confident and dismissive, now showed caution, and in some cases, thinly, veiled fear. Welcome to Earth, Maxwell said, the same greeting she had offered 16 years ago. First speaker Nexvora, the highest-ranking Zoraxian official, bowed slightly. Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador Maxwell. The meeting took place in the United Nations Grand Assembly Hall. Earth representatives sat as equals with the Confederation delegation. After weeks of negotiation via subspace communication, today, they would finalize the new relationship between humanity and the galactic community. The Confederation formally recognizes Earth and all human settlements as full members with rights equal to all founding species, Nexvora announced, placing his 6-fingered hand on the treaty document. Admiral Alan Blackwood, seated beside Maxwell, allowed himself a small smile. After years of secret preparation and careful planning, humanity had earned respect not through aggression, but through strategic demonstration of capability. In addition, continued Nexvora, we offer formal apology for the events on Mars and agree to the prosecution of those responsible, according to joint legal protocols. Commander Cragg and 5 other Dravek officials had already been tried and sentenced for their roles in the Mars massacre. The reparations would help build a memorial and support the families of those lost. Dr. Olivia Winters, now leading the newly established Galactic Biology Institute, watched from her seat in the science section. Her discoveries about comparative neurology had become required study for Confederation scientists, many of whom were still struggling to understand how they had so completely misjudged human potential. After the formal ceremony, a reception was held in the gardens outside. Human and alien delegates mingled, the relationship now one of cautious respect rather than condescension. Engineer Patrick Reed found himself surrounded by Zoraxian and Dravik engineers eager to understand his shield technology. "The principle is simple," he explained patiently. "Your weapons have used the same energy patterns for millennia. We simply designed shields that specifically counter those patterns." "But such adaptation would take centuries," protested a Dravik. Engineer Reed shook his head. "Not for humans. We're used to starting from scratch, finding workarounds, improvising." Across the garden, Captain Samuel Harris, now Fleet Commander Harris, spoke with several Confederation military officials. They had requested joint training exercises, suddenly eager to learn human tactical approaches. "Your species fights differently," admitted a Zoraxian commander. "You use chaos as a strategy. It's disturbing, but effective." Harris smiled. "We call it asymmetrical warfare. When you can't match your opponent's strength, you find other advantages." Not all interactions were so positive. Some Confederation species, particularly the warrior culture Dravik, struggled with humanity's sudden rise to power. Extremist factions had already launched minor attacks on human outposts, though these had been easily repelled. "There will be resistance," Ambassador Maxwell said quietly to Admiral Blackwood as they watched the gathering. "Some species won't accept change easily." "We're prepared," Blackwood assured her. "But we're not conquerors. That's the difference they don't understand yet." 3 years passed. Humanity's integration into the wider galactic community accelerated faster than anyone expected. Human adaptability, once mocked as primitive emotionality, became their most valuable export. Human problem-solving approaches revolutionized stagnant Confederation technologies. Earth medical techniques, developed by Dr. Winters and her team, helped treat conditions that had plagued alien species for centuries. Earth art, music, and literature, so full of emotion and contradiction, became fashionable across the galaxy. A new term entered the galactic lexicon: human thinking. Approaching problems from unexpected angles and adapting rapidly to changing circumstances. Admiral Blackwood established joint military exercises where other species learned human tactical flexibility. Dr. Winters headed her Xenobiology Institute that pioneered medical treatments benefiting all species. Ambassador Maxwell became the first human on the Confederation High Council. In a quiet moment between council sessions, Maxwell found herself alone with Zelthar, now an elderly statesman. Once he had patronized her, now he sought her wisdom. "I've been studying human history," he said, his 4 eyes blinking thoughtfully. "You've always been like this, adapting, overcoming, surprising those who underestimated you." "It's in our nature," she replied. "When you spend thousands of years as prey instead of predators, you learn to think differently." "The Dravik still fear you," Zelthar admitted. "They call humans the coming storm." Maxwell smiled. "We don't want to be feared. We want to be partners. Yet you must admit, the galaxy has changed more in the 20 years since we met humans than in the previous 1,000 years." She couldn't argue with that. Earthships now explored distant sectors of the galaxy. Human colonies had spread to dozens of worlds. Earth's defensive capabilities had grown even more sophisticated, though they remained primarily protective rather than aggressive. On a newly established colony world named New Eden, Dr. Catherine Donovan welcomed a group of alien students to the first mixed-species university. Among them was Zelthar's grandson Tevnar, eager to learn human thinking. "My grandfather says humans see patterns others miss," the young Zoraxian told her during orientation. "Is this why you advanced so quickly?" Dr. Donovan considered the question. "Partly, but I think it's more that we never stop questioning. Your people reached a point where you thought you had all the answers. Humans always assume there's more to learn." That evening, Zelthar himself visited the campus. At his age, interstellar travel was difficult, but he had insisted on seeing this new institution that embodied the changed relationship between species. Dr. Donovan found him watching the sunset from a garden overlook, his aged frame supported by a mobility device developed by human medical engineers. "It's beautiful here," he said as she joined him. "Different from my world, but beautiful." "Thank you for coming," she replied. "Your grandson shows great promise." Zelthar was quiet for a moment, watching the alien sun sink below an Earth-like horizon. "You know, we thought ourselves so advanced that we forgot the most important evolutionary lesson. Specialization creates vulnerability. Your species never specialized, so you never stopped adapting." He turned his 4 eyes toward her. "The joke was on us all along. Across the galaxy, humanity continued to grow and integrate, bringing change and innovation to a civilization that had stagnated for millennia. What had once been dismissed as primitive emotionality was now recognized as humanity's greatest strength, the ability to feel deeply, think differently, and never stop evolving. The species once considered the cosmic joke had become the catalyst for a new golden age of galactic development, not through conquest, but by turning their perceived weaknesses into their greatest strengths.